And let's see. How was your week, David?
I beg your pardon?
How was your week?
Oh, it's pretty good. I'm messing around with new monitors on my laptop, but
Oh, yeah?
but it's doing very well, and we're having the observatory roof rebuilt next week.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
there's quite a bit going on this.
Starts
this
Sunday,
week.
or when does it start?
Yeah, it's going to be a very busy few days. And meet Minerva. My telescope is here too.
Very nice.
I appreciate you waiting for me. I know I've delayed the meeting for you.
No.
In exchange, I will refund all of your money.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Terry. Yes.
Hi, David.
Hi. The check's in the mail, as they say.
You guys could, since this is an outreach effort, if you have a way to share this program with if you're on Facebook, share it with groups or friends, because they're going to watch this. This is going to be an awesome program. Sharing it right now with the Neil deGrasse Tyson group. This has about 100,000 members. Facebook Astronomy Club, they have nearly 40,000 members. And
who has 40,000 members, Scotty?
Facebook Astronomy Club. It's run by, it was started by Tom Pickett.
Oh.
Yeah, Telescope Addicts. I don't know how many they have, but I think they have quite a few. They're a great group. The RIT Astronomy Club, sharing it with them. Astrophotography.
And we're doing another Global Star Party next Tuesday, right, Scotty?
Tuesday. That's right.
Good. I shall be there.
Well, because you're going to be there, I'll be there.
Well, thank you.
But only because of that. How about the Southern Astronomical Society? We'll share it with them. Our Astronomy Club. It sounds very international. Central Illinois group. Chicago Astronomical Society. Visual Astronomy Club. We already have a bunch of people watching, including my sister, Teresa. So, hi.
Well,
My,
hello, Teresa. Yeah.
yeah. My Weezer is watching from cloudy Southern Arizona. Jay Manifold watching from equally cloudy Kansas City. Book Davies is watching. Mick Whitaker, Jeff Wise, Jim's Astrophoto from Michigan, Chris Larson, and many more. Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts here to proudly present the Astronomical League Live #4. Okay. And we have with us League officers, the president, Carol Orch, and the League secretary, Terry Mann. She's also former president of the Astronomical League. And of course, joining us here are some really, just amazing, iconic astronomers, including David Levy, Barbara Harris out of Florida, Connie Walker in Arizona. David is also in Arizona. Terry, I'm glad that we're still doing these programs, and it looks like we have many more to do. It's just an honor. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can give the introductions and get things kicked off here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Scott. It is an honor to be here, and thank you for everything that you are doing. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about David Levy. I've known David for a while, and I have met Wendy. I've been to their home and always felt so welcome. They are two people I've considered friends for a long time, very generous, as nice as you can find. And seeing all of the telescopes and everything at his house has just been amazing. David, you are an incredible guy that it has been an honor to know you for all the years that I have and will. So I am going to turn it over to you and let you kick us off.
Well, thank you, Terry. I hope you can hear me okay.
Sounds good.
I'd like to add my welcome to all of you at this wondrous Astronomical League event tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to hear from a lot of people. I know all of you pretty well, except not so much Barbara Harris, but that I will get to know her tonight. And Connie Walker, Wendy and I have been friends with Connie for decades. We used to entertain the Project Astro group that Connie used to run at our home many years ago. And I kind of miss doing that. That was a lot of fun. And a lot of fun. We really enjoyed doing that. We enjoyed Connie's expertise in astronomy education, which is really second to none. Anyway, I'm going to begin this with a quotation. And tonight's quotation is going to introduce kind of a new type of poetic phrase, which I don't really know is a phrase or not, but I call it phasing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote from one piece of poetry, and then I'm going to move to a second piece of poetry. Those of you who are listening might be able to notice when I make the switch by changing pages in my magic book to get to the other poem. The first part of the poetry is from Romeo and Juliet, and I believe it is the only quotation from Shakespeare. It may be, no, it's not the only quotation, because there's a quotation from NASA at the Apollo 11 site and the Apollo 17 sites. Here, those from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. we came in peace for all mankind. And that sits on the moon, but this also does, and it sits on the moon where Gene Shoemaker's ashes are. And it's a quotation from Romeo and Juliet. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to phase into a Tennyson quotation from Tennyson's Ulysses. And so here goes. Come, gentle night. Come, loving black-browed night. This is something that really urges and wants you and calls for you to look at the sky. Come, gentle night. Come, loving black-browed night. Give me my Romeo, and when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Back to you now, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right.
Thank you, David. That was really good.
Thank you.
I'd like to start next with Carol Orch. He's the president of the Astronomical League, and he's got an update for us to let us know what's going on. So, Carol, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Terry. It's good to be here again, and good to see some people I haven't seen in several years on the program here tonight. So welcome, everybody. I'd like to give an update on what's happening as far as our national convention. Can I go ahead and share my screen here, Terry? See, I think I'm there. Let's see. Is it looking okay, Terry?
I don't see anything, Carol.
See the screen yet? All right.
Nope.
Let's try again. Okay. Are we good now, Terry?
Nope, don't see anything.
Yeah, so you're clicking on the share screen button, the green one on the bottom,
Right.
and then you highlight the thing you'd like to share, and then you have to hit share.
Right. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Duh. Okay.
Now
What I'd
that's your
like to.
desktop that you have there.
All right.
Carol, do you have any room for anything else on there?
No.
You're not supposed to see that.
Very busy with the president of the Astronomical League.
Yeah.
That's very clear. There you
Okay.
go.
We've made the decision within the last week that officially, I don't think it's any great surprise, that it's probably not the best thing to have a convention in person. So we have made the decision, the executive committee of the league has, that we are going to reschedule to July 2022 in Albuquerque once again to have a physical convention. In the meantime, however, we've also made the decision that 2021 will be all virtual. I'd like to thank Terry, who has graciously volunteered to be one of the co-chairs for that event, along with Chuck Allen, the vice president of the league. And Scott, I'd certainly like to thank you in a big kind of way, you and Explorer Scientific, for agreeing to give us some major technological help with this. It's going to be invaluable. So thank you so much.
Well, it's our honor. It's our honor. Thank you.
I think you'll find that it's going to be a really special event. I know leading up to all of this, on our various Zoom meetings, we've had a range of quality people giving talks, and I see that we're going to be heading in that direction for Alcon as well. We're doing something just a little bit different. It will be a Friday through Sunday weekend event. We usually don't go Sundays in the past, but we think it'll work out okay. We envision it to be a block in the morning and also one in the evening on those 3 days, and give everyone a chance to pull back a little bit in the middle of the day before we have some other special speakers in the evening. We don't know exactly just yet when the dates will be, except it will be in August. We're down to 2 dates, and Terry and Chuck will be communicating those quite soon. Another thing we'll be doing at the virtual Alcon is presenting something, hopefully from our new Alcon Junior program. We were scheduled to do that in person in Albuquerque in 2021, but again, COVID got in the way. And so we hope to have a presentation, an overview of what that's about at the virtual event. And as with everything else, it's a little difficult to present physical awards in person. So I have a feeling Scott will come up with some magic that will make it seem almost like it's happening. So we're depending on you, Scott. These awards will include our youth awards that everyone's used to seeing, our National Young Astronomer Award, which Scott and Explore Scientific so gracefully sponsor. We'll have also the Horkheimer Awards, the Service Awards, the Mabel Stearns Newsletter Award, and the Webmaster Award as well. And I don't know those people watching out there, if you can see the addresses on in blue or not. So I may just read those just to make sure everybody can see them. If not, I will. Here's the actual event email address for each of our awards. And by the way, the deadlines are the end of March. The National Young Astronomer Award, the address is nyaa@astroleague.org. That's maybe a little hard to read there. The Horkheimer Journalism Award, which I'll say a little bit about that. That's a journalism essay that students 8 to 12 write, and there's some nice cash prize for those. The winner gets a prize of a little over $1,000. I think it's actually $1,200, and there's 2 runner-ups which get prizes for $500 and I think $250. We recommend that it be on some kind of a science endeavor. However, we would prefer it be on astronomy, but the rules let it be on any field from science. Another Horkheimer Award is the Parker Imaging Award. And that is one, like it says, for youth to submit images. That one also has a cash award for it. And finally, the Horkheimer Service Awards. We have 2 of those. The first one is the Horkheimer Smith. Jack Horkheimer, when he was, before he got interested in astronomy many, many years ago, he learned about astronomy from a former league president. His last name was Smith. And so that's why he named it for Smith, one of the 2 Horkheimer Service Awards. The other one was named for the founder of the Winter Star Party, Tippy. And that's the address for that one to send in to enter that. Again, the deadline for those 2 are March the 31st. The bottom one, in case you can't read it in the blue there, Horkheimer Service @astroleague.org. Then we will have a lot of adult awards we will be presenting virtually and then sending the plaque later. Starting with the Sketching Award, which has been a very popular award in recent years. For many years, we seemed to get away from sketching in the field of astronomy, but it started coming back a few years ago, and we have an award, and lots of our members are still involved in that and doing some very nice detailed work on that. The address for that one is sketch@astroleague.org. And another one that gets lots of entries in most years is the Mabel Stearns Newsletter Award, named after a former executive secretary of the League. And that one is Stearns Newsletter at astroleague.org. Another one we have is the Webmaster Award. And that's given to a special webmaster who has set up a very nice page and a functional page and so on. And the final one we have listed here is the Horkheimer Library Telescope Award. This is a club award, actually. It's given to a local library. They submit entries, and then if they're selected as one of the finalists, they get a library, a telescope to provide for their local library. If you have any questions about any of those awards, Chuck would be the person to get a hold of. He could give you more information on those. Other awards we will be giving at the convention or presenting virtually will be such things as the Master Observer Award Plex. That is for master observers who have not attended an Alcon convention to get a physical plaque for celebrating their wonderful achievement. The Master Observer Award is presented to observers who, I don't know the magic number exactly, but it's a tremendous number of league awards one has to observe in order to get this. And then there's different levels as well. So it's it takes a lot of time, takes lots of nice skies, lots of persistence, and all kinds of attributes like that. The Astronomical League Award is presented to a person in astronomy who has contributed a great deal to the field as well as to the Astronomical League. The Wright Award is named for a former officer in the League. That's our service award, and it's for, like I say, for service, for outstanding efforts and help with the League programs. And then there's always some special awards we slip in that we don't have a nice category for. So I'd like to encourage you to mark your calendars now for August 2021 with the specific weekend dates to be announced fairly soon. It should come within the next month. And if you have any questions about anything that's come up, either you can email me, president@astroleague.org, or if it's directly involving one of the awards programs, then vice-president@astroleague.org. I think that will do it, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Library Telescope Program, don't we also award those one to a MAL to a, yeah. We do it to vote one for each region, correct?
That's correct. One for each region and one for a member at large, which means they're not affiliated with any particular club.
Yeah, and you can find that form, I think, on the website under awards, isn't it?
That's correct. And Vice President at astroleague.org will also get that for you.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask the 3 questions. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's make sure that I've got that. It's taking a minute. There we go. Now, can you see mine?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for this one, you might watch the Global Star Party. We do things a little bit different on the Global Star Party, but for this series of questions, you will send the answers to secretary@astroleague.org. And please send those answers to that email as soon as you can when I get done. The winners will be announced after the keynote this time. So we will ask the questions and present the prize before the show is over. And after the winners are announced, Carol Orch, the president of the Astronomical League, will be contacting you and making sure we've got your address and where to send the prizes. So tonight, the prize will be a Astronomical League baseball hat. So each winner will receive a hat from the Astronomical League. And so we're going to start with the questions. As soon as there we go. What is the name of this object and what type of object is this? That's question one.
Yep. Don't answer it in chat. Send it to the secretary at astroleague.org that I have also put it into the chat there.
Thank you, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, what is the name of this nebula?
Ooh.
Third question, what is the name of this cluster? And for those of you that are familiar with all these, you'll know they all three have something in common. So send those answers as quick as you can to secretary@astroleague.org. And then I would like to explain, we're going to make some changes to the way that we are presenting door prizes, and this will be mainly on the Global Star Party. On Tuesday, March 16th, which will be this Tuesday that is coming up, we're going to start a new way to do this, and we will not be announcing winners each week. Instead, we will ask the questions, we'll give the answers, and then at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, you're going to see a list of individual names that answered the questions correctly. Those names will be added to an Excel list, and at the end of every month, we will award prizes. And then twice a year, we're going to do grand prizes. And we think August will probably be our first one at Alcon. While we're doing the virtual event, we'll probably do a grand prize, door prizes at that time will be our first time. And every name that is on that Excel list will be added for the grand prize. So the more questions you answer correctly, the more times you will see your name, or your name will be on the Excel list, the better chance you have. So answer all the questions that you can, and we will keep building and building that list up, and then we will use a number generator, and that's the way we will select the winners each week. So that will start on the next Global Star Party. And I think that is going to end my part there. And so the next person up is going to be Connie Walker. Now, I know a lot of us know Connie Walker. She has done some incredible stuff, an amazing person. As we were talking, just not enough hours in the day to do everything that she would like to do. We need to clone her, I think. But Connie has been a scientist at the National Science Foundation's NOR Lab for 20 years, creating with the educational team innovative programs on dark skies education, as well as optics and astronomy programs through inquiry and research to incite teachers and students in STEM, and then sharing these programs via workshop, talks, and events all over the globe. She has been involved in leadership roles with light pollution issues on the ground and in space. Her efforts in bringing dark sky awareness to the public, IDA awarded her the Hoag Robinson Award, and Asteroid 29292, Connie Walker, was named by discoverers David Levy and Carolyn Shoemaker for her efforts in educational outreach. Her amazing husband, daughter, and son, and cat thankfully tolerate her interest in the dark side of astronomy. Connie, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. And I will let her talk to you about her topic.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It is such an honor, and it is a great pleasure to see you. I haven't talked to you for a while, and Scott and David, or David, and my goodness. And when David I'm very embarrassed that all that was said, but when David announced that, I looked behind me and there was a wall, so I didn't realize at first that he was actually awarding the asteroid name after me, and it was just. I told him it was the best thing since I got my PhD, and I was really very, very impressed with that, and I still thank him to this day, and I thank Wendy as well. But I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and let me get the PowerPoint up. And I will get it going into presenter mode. And is it looking okay for you?
Looks great.
Looks
Okay.
fine.
Looks
Okay.
good.
Again, thank you, everybody. I truly mean it's a pleasure to be here. And I am lucky to be part of Noir Lab, which is your national observatory. And I've been asked to talk to you about this international citizen science program on light pollution called Globe at Night and how you can participate. So there is, this is a rhetorical question that I have up here because I know as amateur astronomers, you all know the answer to this. But imagine you did live in one of these cities on Earth that you can see from space, basically. And what kind of sky? Just imagine what kind of sky you would see. And the rate of growth of light pollution is actually more than the rate of growth of the Earth's population, the rate of growth of the Earth's population at this point, believe it or not. And with about 80% of the people in the United States never having seen the Milky Way arch overhead majestically and brightly, people are actually starting to take notice, thankfully, that the night sky is something that they should treasure and protect. And I want to give you an opportunity to do more than more with Globe at Night, let's just say. So one of these, there's many different areas in which you can you'd be protecting the night sky and other things as well in terms of energy consumption and human health and wildlife. Light pollution affects all these areas. Billions of dollars are wasted each year, as you probably know, through energy consumption, through unshielded lights shining up where they're not needed, and when they stay on too long, and you all know that, and glare, creating hazards and light trespass and all sorts of predicaments from light pollution, and circadian sensitivities that people have if you are disrupted by too much light at night. And I think that it actually does increase things like obesity and depression and sleep disorders and whatnot. And melatonin's melatonin levels in your body that can be depleted. And that actually have, and I think maybe Barbara can speak more to this, but there's been some research that have some ties to cancer, to two or three types of cancer. And the habits and habitats of animals actually are negatively affected because migrating birds and sea turtles that bring them to basically the brink of survival. So there's a lot of things to think about when protecting the night sky in terms of how it relates to your own life, including having a washed out sky, which basically impedes you and me from viewing and enjoying a night sky and your research and those of other astronomers to understand our universe and its origins. So there's a lot here that we are protecting. And of course, you all know this too, that there's a variety of ways that you can protect the night sky. You can basically start at home and ask yourselves, does your outdoor lighting serve a clear and necessary purpose? Do you have to have as many lights around your house? And do you have to leave them on for as long a time period? Is it appropriate for the task that's intended to do? Are the bulbs energy efficient? Can you have some sort of shield over them so that they're facing downward? Is it connected to active controls like timers and motion sensors or dimmers? And then, of course, you want to have a warm color that it emits instead of a harmful blue light. And so all these things and more, you can actually, if you want to know more, you can actually go to the darksky.org website, which is the International Dark Sky Association's website. And they have so much information there. They're just really leaders in this field of protecting the night sky. So that was my preview to talking about Globe at Night and why being part of Globe at Night and actually being able to basically rate the brightness of your night sky is an important thing to do. We want to keep in touch with what our levels of light pollution are where we live, and we want to know when they are getting worse and if we have to really do something about it. And so Globe at Night was actually born about 15 years ago now. It's a pretty successful international citizen science campaign with the aim to raise the awareness of the public in terms of light pollution. And it's been active in about 180 different countries to date. And maybe 2/3 of a million people have been involved. And in just 2020, we had a record-breaking year with close to 30,000 measurements from almost 100 countries, which was fantastic. And so it basically involves very simple steps of recording the night sky brightness by matching your view of the night sky, like with the constellation of Orion, which is the constellation of the month, basically, with maps of progressively fainter stars. And I'll show you some of those in a moment. But these campaigns happen over a 10-day period each month when the moon is not out in the first half of the night to avoid it being a natural light bulb in the night sky, basically. And what I wanted to bring your attention to with the maps that you see, the top one being of Europe and the bottom one being of the US, you see all these colored dots on there, right? And the brighter the dot, basically the brighter the sky. And that was the measurement. It was, like you'll see surrounding the cities, especially, or in the cities, very bright dots. That goes hand in hand with bright skies. And then where there are darker dots, you have the darker skies, mostly near the national parks, basically. And I just wanted to show you our webpage. It has a plethora of information. So if you go there, you will hopefully not be disappointed. But you have pages for, if you want to learn about our dates, you go to the observing page. If you want to learn about reporting observations, you go to the report page, obviously. And you have maps and data, and we have a variety of resources, including our postcards and activity guides and web pages in more than 24 different languages. So hopefully you'll find something that satisfies what you need. And so the report page is something that, this is one way of getting to it right here. So we'll need to access that in a minute. Hold on for a second. I have to delete a couple of windows that are open. Okay, so to take the measurements, it's very simple. You're gonna start, obviously, if you can, turn off as many lights around your house if that's where you're taking your measurements, as many lights as you can. And then you wanna also make sure you go out, and you guys know this better than I do with all the observing that you do. You want to go out at least when it's nautical twilight or astronomical twilight. That's even better. So more than an hour after sunset, you want to go out to take these measurements. And then you want to allow your eyes to adjust to the dark. It's very, very important that your eyes. So for me, I'm getting a little older, so it's probably 15, 20 minutes, but for younger people, it's probably like 10 minutes. But so you just make sure that your eyes are adapted to the darkness around you, hopefully the darkness around you. Okay, and then you will try to go out and find the constellation. And sometimes you can use an app to do this. There's a variety of apps out there from free to a couple dollars a piece. But you guys know the night sky better than anybody. So I think that's not going to be a problem. And you just find in this month, it's the constellation of Orion. Next month, Orion and Leo, actually. And next month, it's also Leo for the Northern Hemisphere. And those are pretty prominent constellations. And then you're going to go to the Globe at Night webpage. And again, you can go, as I showed you, on the home page to the tab at the top right that says report, or you can use this web address that you see on your screen right now. And it's called web app for a reason, because when it was actually invented back in 2011, 2012 or so, there was really no apps out there just yet. And we actually had the foresight to make a report, an actual web page, just like an app in some sense, and even better, because here you can go to it and it doesn't matter what browser you're on, and it doesn't matter what phone you're using. You can actually take data with this app on your phone. So that's what makes it really cool and really nice.
Nice.
And again, yeah. And so then for this part, you're gonna actually put in, if you don't have a smartphone, you actually put in the date and time and the location. And for the location, it's merely your street address, or if you don't want to give that, maybe it's 2 streets that are intersecting, or if you're at the Eiffel Tower, all you have to put in is the Eiffel Tower, or something like that, a landmark of sorts, but something that's very close by, potentially it would be best if you would do it exactly where you're standing, but it doesn't have to be lat long, but it actually calculates for you based on your address what the lat long will be. So if you have a smartphone, this is the coolest thing to me, actually. The date, the time, and location get put in automatically, so you don't have to do a thing, okay, at that point. But for the next step you're choosing, you're actually making that judgment call as to what your light pollution level is where you're standing. And the way you do that is very simple, because all you're doing is looking at 7 charts and determining what is the faintest star in that chart that you actually see up in the night sky. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that in a few more slides, but there are 7 different charts that are important. And actually there's 8 that display, but there's one that has nothing on it. And I tend to ignore that one because I'm hoping nobody has to use that particular slide. So the 7 ones I'm going to show you in just a minute are in the next slide are the 7 ones that you are going to actually be using. So let me get to the next page here. Okay, so chart 1 is like you would see in New York City. Okay, you might see the absolutely brightest stars and none of the fainter ones, obviously. And as you go progressively up in the charts, you're going to see more and more stars. And I don't usually say this to the public, but you guys know that what you're talking about here actually is limiting magnitude. So how faint your star, you're a star you can possibly see. What is your limiting magnitude? So each of these charts maps directly onto a limiting magnitude. Chart 1 is limiting magnitude 1, and chart 7, like you see here in the second slide, is what limiting magnitude 7, and that's what you would see probably in a national park. And that is probably there's so many stars in that one. you might not even distinguish one constellation from another. So that's really great. So again, it's very, very simple. Okay. And here, the next step is that you should try to do is there's 4 different pictures of how many clouds are in the night sky to you. So clear night sky versus a very, very cloudy night sky for the 4th image that you have on your app. And so it's very easy. Whatever you click on, that's going to be the measurement that you stick with. And the next piece is the 5th step is just entering, if you have it, is a sky quality meter. Now the sky quality meter is something that a lot of you do have, and that's why I'm making a point here, because I think of all the population in the entire United States, the most people with SQMs are probably the amateur astronomers. So I'm happy to say that if you have one, here's where you can use it. If you don't have one, don't worry. It's just an optional thing you can do. And of course, you just hold it above your head. You click the start button, and if it's a dark site, you wait for it to stop ticking because it's integrating, and then you look at the number and you jot it down in the app. There's a place for it there. And then it's just submitting it. It's really so simple. You're done in 30 seconds, but it takes a long time to get your eyes dark adapted. So so you spend more time dark adapting your eyes than you do taking the data, unfortunately. And then, so just to summarize, here you go with the 6 steps. And what I wanted to point out primarily is that for this step here, the 3rd step where you're actually inputting data, probably for the first time if you have a smartphone, is that if you see these little thumbnail images at the very bottom, can you see my cursor in action there? Good, okay. So you see these thumbnail images here, and there's 7 or 8 of them, and when you're clicking on them, it appears above. Oops, I have a trigger happy mouse there. Sorry about that. Let me try that again. Okay, so you see the picture, and I'm going to try to do that without moving this thing again. So this big picture will be whatever thumbnail you've clicked on, and where you leave it is your measurement. So be very careful to have convinced yourself that that's the right the right image. Okay, and again, the next one over here in the part 4, those are your weather, basically your cloud cover, and you click which one is appropriate, and that's your measurement. And so it's that simple. And let me see if I forgot any. I have a little notes here to see if I've said everything. And of course, there's a mode for where you see it's pink up there on the top right here. It's a night mode, so you don't have this light blaring at you as you're trying to take your measurements. And I think I've said most everything I wanted to mention. Okay, that's good. And let's go to the next slide. So just in case, and I won't spend time on this too much, but I just want to make a point that, again, it is important to monitor changes over time, because if things do get worse, you want to know that you should take action. And this data actually feeds into a big database. Lots of people have used this data for different projects, and I might name one of them in a minute. So, your efforts are very needed, and I can't, in particular, I cannot be everywhere with taking this data, and neither can my colleagues. We rely on citizen scientists to take this data all over the world, and we do appreciate all those measurements. Thank you. So just to let you know, one great effort by amateur astronomers and some high schoolers was in Norman, Oklahoma a few years back, where they took data both with sky quality meters and visually. And you'll see this lit area in the very center is actually their university. And that's where they had a lot of globe lights. And they actually petitioned their city council to please make the laws stronger, the lighting laws. And they won after about a 2-year endeavor. And so this is what you guys can do. A lot of good things. Another example, which was a great project we had a lot of fun with, we had amateur astronomers take control over taking measurements on 4 major roads in Tucson, Arizona. And we are very lucky that on either side of Tucson, we have 2 national parks. We had a Bio Blitz celebration. That is something that the National Geographic sponsors every year for the national park. And 10 years ago now, I hate to say it's so long ago, but we had amateur astronomers be in charge of the roads across Tucson. That's a great distance across there. They took a lot of measurements every mile or half a mile. And then there were the park rangers in the backcountry in the park to the east. And we had Boy Scouts taking measurements on the park to the west. And this got media attention. And we found, for instance, at the very center of Tucson, where you see this yellow dot, that is about 100 times brighter than the measurements to the eastern edge of the Rincon Mountains to our east. So that's a result that is interesting. So anyways, there's just other things. And my favorite project for research has been this one on bats. And the Arizona Game and Fish asked us to collaborate with them, and we took 3,500 measurements in Tucson with SQMs evenly distributed all over the town so that we could make this contour map. And the colored lines you see are the routes of the bats going from the Saguaro National Park east that I just showed you, 25 kilometers to where they feast every night and coming back in the morning. And they circumvented the town for a reason, and they wanted to know whether this reason was due to light pollution. So it was a very interesting study, got very interesting results. And I just want to show you that this is the way we do use globe at night data. And this is does come into very, very good use. So I just want to end with some campaign dates. If you're interested in, we have a couple more nights. This particular campaign before we head out of New Moon. And then we have dates in April all the way through the end of the year. And actually, there's one after December 4th, toward the end of December, where you could do it during Christmas week, if that's what you want to do. During Christmas week, there's a campaign that will advertise at the end of the year. And that's it for me, if anyone has any questions.
Comment was very well done, and count me in. So Book Davies says the SQM at my house comes to 20.5.
Really? That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I answered this question right. John Pinto said, what's the serial number in the SQM data? And I think it's just the serial number of the device and the model number, which you can pull up with different button sequences. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You hold it down. You press twice and hold it down, and you'll see a couple more numbers. And one of those numbers is the serial number. And you don't need to put that in there. It's just,
okay.
No, it's optional.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Any other question here?
I have one while you're looking. Connie, what is the most interesting thing in the years that this has been going on? What things surprised you the most?
Well, okay, just last year, we had the whole continent of Australia get involved. And they decided they were going to go for the Guinness Book of World Records. and see how many measurements they could get in one single night. And guess what? They did such a good job rallying the entire nation that they got 6,700 measurements in one night,
Wow.
which was their longest night during the June 21st is their longest night.
Wow. That's
Isn't that
amazing.
impressive?
That is impressive.
And needless to say, they got into the Guinness Book of Records.
Well, that's a good idea. You should make it a competition among states or cities or
Countries.
Yes.
let people compete.
Yeah, so we're hoping to repeat this and then to do it for the Northern Hemisphere during our longest day of the year. But the thing is, it's when people are out of school and a lot of people are on vacation. A lot of people are, the kids are the ones who do a lot of the measurements. So anyways, it's a little bit harder for us. But yeah.
Yeah.
How many years has there been counts?
It's going on 15 years.
Wow.
And what area has showed the biggest deterioration?
Well, that's a really good question.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know if I get in trouble if I answer that.
Well, as astronomers, we want to stay away from those areas. So.
Let's go the other way. How about the biggest improvement?
I would say that the countries with the largest growth in population probably are the countries, the most industrialized countries are the ones that usually are the ones that are showing greater rates of light pollution. But at the same time, it's hard to single it out because at the same time, there are a lot of communities actually in the United States who are taking it under their advisement to really do a good job at selecting the right kind of lighting. They're retrofitting. They're really taking it seriously. And that gives a lot of hope,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know I'm tired of driving 45 minutes away just to find clear skies. And a lot of people have to drive farther than that, or dark skies, I mean. I'm like a lot of people, I'm in the national parks a lot because that seems to be the best, most beautiful sky and so much scenery to do during the day. If the family goes with you, they have a way of keeping busy. And so you can go out and image or observe at night. And, it just makes it so much easier. So, I'm very grateful for our national parks and everything that they do.
Just recently, the city of Kansas City announced they're going to change out all their lights to LED. So we're hoping that we can get through the Missouri IDA chapter, get them involved and really tweak that process to be more advantageous for astronomers. So it's a
you have to be careful. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Carol.
It's an uphill battle, but I think we can make some progress because they've already said some of the right things as they're starting it, like we want to be as efficient as we possible, energy used correctly and all that, but they're not going the full direction, of course.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the color temperature of the devices, of the bulbs, are probably less than 3,000 Kelvin. That's something that's very important, and they're getting better and better. So some people are actually quoting 2,200 Kelvin for a temperature for the bulb. So I don't know if that's going to be possible, but shoot for whatever you can get.
That's right. Thanks.
Connie, we're probably going to be talking to you again because with what we do, keeping our dark skies is very important for all of us. No matter what we're doing, if we're observing or taking pictures, it is really important to try to keep our skies as dark as they can possibly be. Because as you said, 80% of the people can't even see the Milky Way, which to me, it just is amazing. Some of I can walk out in my backyard and I am fortunate enough to see the Milky Way, not super bright, but I can tell it's there. And it's just amazing how quickly we are losing the dark skies.
Yes, we want to preserve our cultural heritage for future generations as best we can.
Definitely so. So does anybody else have any questions before we take a break?
General comments. Why says everyone needs to have bright front and back lights around here. Street lights ain't he's complaining. Yes, that's too bad. Connie, are there any standout countries or locales that really have made an improvement in reducing light pollution, or is it still this ongoing growing problem.
Yeah.
every-
There's places like Borrego Springs who've done a lot of, a lot of good work. There, there's been major cities even that have retrofitted, like San Diego, and actually some action up north in the San Francisco area, but like Davis, I think it was. They actually had put in some very bad lights, and people complained so much they had to retrofit the newly installed lights to be better. Yeah, I know, it was impressive. I mean, there's been there's been cities in around the world too. Slovakia is a very they have a national law. They've done that in a few different places in Europe. So yeah, and there's places that just are jaw dropping in terms of like Croatia and near I think it's Laban in Croatia. They take incredible number of measurements, and Montevideo in Uruguay take an incredible number of measurements for globe at night. And they're always on top of it. And there's so many countries like that all over the world. This is just a very impressive thing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and don't forget the Astronomical League has a Dark Sky Advocate Observer program. So we also have a program for dark skies.
Yes.
So if you're a league member, please get into that too. This is an important thing to save here. So, all right, if there are no more questions, Scott, how about if we take a 10-minute break and we will come back to you and Kent, and then Barbara Harris will be up. And Connie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you again for letting me be on here.
Thank you, Connie.
Very nice.
That was nice, Connie. Really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Thank you, and I'll answer your question in the text, in the chat.
Well, we are back. I think I ran a little bit long.
That's okay. Barbara
okay.
is having internet
I
problems.
was making my sandwich.
Yeah, that's okay. You could just share with all of us.
Okay. All right. I made a sandwich for all of you guys too. So that's
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. Barbara is rebooting and trying to get back online right now. We have lost Barbara.
okay. Well, look, I
so-
will talk a little bit about the Universe Sampler right now. Kent Martz will be joining me a little bit later, but you know, this is probably one of the best little guides for anybody that's getting started in astronomy. But I think it's also a good guide for someone that has maybe been into astronomy before. We get a lot of people that maybe they were into astronomy years ago and now they're jumping back into it, but they're a little bit rusty, okay? And so, you know, in the guide itself, which was, this guide was written by Barbara Wilson and Amelia Goldberg from the Houston Astronomical Society. You know, they basically set, you know, made the outline for the book, put in a ton of the content in here, but they also had help from people, actually many people, including people like David Levy. Okay, so, and some of my favorite parts in here, of course, the first section of the Universe Sampler has to do with, you know, understanding sky movement, right ascension and declination, how things look in a star map, you know, like when you're looking through an eyepiece of different kinds of telescopes, how is the map flipped, you know, from east to west, north to south, and that kind of thing. They have a whole section on recording your observations. Now, I don't know if David had any input here, but I think he probably would have, because David, basically his mantra is that if you haven't recorded an observation, it's not an observation. So that's part of that, and we'll cover some of that too. I think my favorite part of it has to do with you know, deep sky objects and how to, you know, look through an eyepiece. There's the art of seeing that's described in the Universe Sampler, and you know, most of us had some mentorship. You know, I'm curious, Terry and Carol, who taught you how to observe through a telescope?
I kind of taught myself.
Did you?
I'm in a small area where the closest astronomy club to me is 40 miles away. So pretty much I bought my own telescope and just learned by using it. What about you, Carol?
Yeah, for me, Kathy Mach, and many people in the league know Kathy.
Yeah.
She's a stickler for detail, and there's not a part of the sky that Kathy doesn't know upside one end and the other. And yeah, she just kept persisting, and she'd say, now here's how you do it. Here's the steps involved. You don't look at the whole sky. You skip across the sky, and that's how you find things. And she, before I even looked at any observing manuals or anything like that, she had me going and finding constellations.
But
one.
That's the star hopping method, which is also another art of learning the sky. And I think that that's what this book has a lot to do with, because in order to do the Universe Sampler, you can't use a go-to system. You can't use the setting circles. You have to learn the sky. And they teach you how to understand and remember the constellations. An example of that is kind of a poem that they write about, you know, Orion's adventure in the sky, you know, with the dog, you know, Canis Major and you know, the rabbit Lupus underneath him, and he's fighting the bull and all this stuff, you know. And so I think it's like 6 constellations you can remember by memorizing this little, it's kind of a ditty or a poem, you know, about, or little story about the sky. And the sky's filled with stories. You know, you have 88 constellations to learn. From, I think, about almost any part of the sky, you can see something like 70% of the sky with all the different seasons of constellations. I think that learning the constellations and learning how to star hop a little bit is a big adventure and a great feeling of accomplishment. When I first got out there, I had with my first big telescope, I had a 13-inch. Do you guys remember the Odyssey, Coulter Odyssey telescopes?
Yes.
These were some of the first really inexpensive Dobsonian telescopes that you could buy. It's with that telescope that I was taught how to observe faint, okay? And so I have to give credit to Charles, and I'm forgetting his last name right now, he's gonna kill me, and Steve Edberg, okay? So I was up at I think it was the Polaris Astronomical Society's observing site. This was north of Los Angeles. And so in one night, Charles Morris is his last name, he showed me 12 comets, okay?
Yeah.
And they were getting progressively fainter and progressively fainter and progressively fainter. But I think I really have to give the credit to Steve Edberg for showing me how to observe faintly, because he taught me to relax at the eyepiece, not stare right down the tube, kind of look off to the side, and to use different eyepieces. And so we were switching eyepieces to observe a 15th magnitude star through an 8-inch telescope. Okay. So this was something a lot of, I think that, I don't know what they describe as far as in the advertising, as far as the specification of how faint you can see, but we were going way past that. Okay. Now I admit that I was in my maybe late 20s when I did this. So my eyes were younger, of course, but I think between Charles and Steve, they were amongst some of the very, very first people to see the inbound, apparition of Halley's Comet. I think they saw it in 1985, well before other people were. I think another one that would have been in that club would have been Stephen O'Meara, okay? Also a great deep sky observer. But in order to learn how to see like that, it really, if I was going to add something to the universe sampler, it would have been how to find a mentor, okay? Because someone that can push you and teach you and have the patience to show you how to observe faint is a big deal, okay? And it also helps for star hopping too, because I'm not going to go through every part of the universe sampler right now because Kent will be on with me later, but they show you how to use your hand to find separations in the sky and how many degrees that is, or how many degrees that is, in the sky, and you put your hand out at arm's length, and it's remarkably close. So I don't know how, humans, maybe we evolved to have our hand out at arm's length to measure distances in the sky. But I think that that's a very useful part in here. There is no other guide that I've really seen or read that takes all of the other necessary elements, that to help you become a really a great observer and someone that understands the night sky, except for the universe sampler. And beyond the list of deep sky objects, they also have a naked eye observing list as well. And maybe most important of all is an observing log. But I would also add to this drawing at the eyepiece, because drawing at the eyepiece lets you see fainter and deeper. And so, look, I'm no artist really, okay? But if you're looking through the eyepiece and maybe you have like a circle drawn that would be the field of view of the eyepiece, if you just sit there and just draw your pencil, don't look down at the paper, okay? Just draw your pencil over areas that you think that you see detail. If you look at a astrophotograph later, you'll find that you actually did record many faint things that maybe you didn't even think you saw for real, okay? Maybe you thought it was like super faint and maybe you think you're seeing stuff. But the fact of the matter is that you're training yourself to see fainter, deeper, you know. And I think that for many people, the advocates of visual observing, it's certainly in this age of astrophotography, advocates of visual observing connect you, you know, they talk about connecting you to the night sky and to the universe in ways that you can't really do otherwise, you know, because you're seeing it live. You're seeing photons come from distant galaxies, you know, and these are not copies of photons, or it's not a reflection. It's not like something that, you know, like in a photograph where you just kind of record, you see the recording of something. It's really coming to you live. So, you know, if it's a galaxy 30 million light years away, well, guess what? The photons crushed, you know, that were made out of the crushing or the fusion of atoms inside of those stars have, you know, come out from the stars, have floated, or not floated, but flown through space at 186,000 miles a second, you know, 5.9 trillion miles a year, you know, for millions of years. And it's the original photon hitting your eye. It's contact, okay? It's contact. And so you're all at once looking back into time, all at once becoming reconnected with those photons onto your eyes, you know. And if you're with, you know, a organic kind of, you know, astronomer like myself, you know, I'm going to be reminding you that all of your body, all of your atoms, everything that you use, everything that you see, everything you know is made from stars. And so that's it.
You know, I think that's one of the concepts that got me hooked on astronomy. To look at something, a star or a nebula or an astronomical object, and realize that you were looking at it as it was millions of years ago, not as, you know, if it blew up 100 years ago, you know, you won't find out yet because the light hasn't gotten there yet.
Right. That's right. So it's, you know, and if that doesn't start your mind on a journey of exploration, I don't know what will. Okay. It is, but I find, Barbara, that you have to keep someone up late enough to where their persona starts to wear away. Okay. Because everybody has like their persona that they do, you know, be with you and, hi, how are you, Barbara? Gosh, what do you have in the telescope too? Hey, Barbara, do you think that there's life somewhere out in the universe? I mean, you know, once you kind of hear questions like that, you know that they're getting to the tipping point. Once they're to that tipping point, all it takes is a gentle push. And now I think at that moment, a new astronomer is born.
Yeah.
So, Barbara, I'm gonna turn this over to you, but Kent's gonna join me after your talk.
Well, thank you, Scott. You know, I can still remember, I mean, I knew my dad took me out when I was a teenager and started teaching me constellations. But you know, the first saying that I remember is follow the arc from the Big Dipper to Arcturus. And then I learned speak to Spica. Well, now they say drive a spike to Spica. But you know, that was one of the first things I remember that taught me other constellations besides the Big Dipper and Orion. I mean, those were the ones I knew as a kid. But then now I can find other constellations and learn some names of the stars. And I thought that was amazing being a teenager and being able, you know, I had no training about the stars. So that really got me started too.
Oh, yeah. But you are a remarkable person. I remember in my interview with you, you were talking about how young you were and really getting interested in the stars. And you were maybe 4 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom would tell me that I was small enough for her to rock in her lap. And I wanted to know about the stars. What were the lights up there? And then as I got older, my dad took over and, it took me to a college observatory every Thursday night. Before that, I had my first telescope in grade school. Oh, wow. Yeah, I was taking my telescope. I had a little 60 millimeter refractor, and I was taking it to school to show the kids the sun, which unfortunately had the little screw-in solar filter at that time. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what could have happened? But all my science projects, science fairs, everything was on astronomy. And Barbara's probably along the same lines. You probably along the same lines. A lot of us were. But that was the first thing I remember that. And when I bought my first real telescope, my refractor was a nice little thing I could just take everywhere. But my first real telescope was a 6-inch reflector. And
Wow.
I thought I'd hit the big time. I had a 6-inch reflector with F8.
Hit the big time.
It was a big telescope. I would
jump from this little thing right here to a 13-inch telescope, but it wasn't until I was about 25. No, I was a little bit younger than that, 24 maybe.
Yeah.
This is what I got when I was 10. Okay, it's a 40 millimeter. So
that's amazing.
it's a big jump in aperture. So.
Yeah. All right. We'll wrap this one up and get to Barbara.
We'll keep on talking forever, Barbara. But
yeah, you get us together and we can. Okay, Barbara Harris. Let me tell you a little bit about Barbara Harris. Again, this is somebody that's very well known, especially in AAVSO. She is amazing with variable stars. So Barbara is a retired OB/GYN physician with her own observatory, and it looks really cool too, the Bar J Observatory in Central Florida. She has had an interest in astronomy since high school, got her first CCD camera in 1999, and wanted to dedicate most of her imaging to science, which she has. If you get Sky and Telescope magazine, April issue, you're going to see Barbara Harris. She does an amazing job. She's been a longtime member of AAVSO doing variable star photometry. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to hear your talk.
Thank you, Terry. And I'd like to say that what got me hooked on variable stars was David Levy giving a talk at the Southern Cross Astronomical Society in the late 80s or early 90s. And he talked about a book called Starlight Nights. And it's my favorite book. I have to read it at least once a year. And that is what got me hooked on variable stars. So I have to thank David for that. And it sounds like he's saying something, but I don't hear him. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about some of the Astronomical League observing programs and how you can use those programs as a springboard to doing real science. And you actually are doing real science when you're doing some of these programs, but something that will continue on your way. Terry gave me a great introduction. And like she said, I have a observatory. It's a third-story domed observatory, a third-story 10-foot domed observatory that houses a 16-inch Meade Schmidt Cassegrain on a astrophysics mount. And it has a Proline CCD attached to it. And this is the workhorse for most of my variable star work. I also have an 80 millimeter refractor attached to on top of that telescope with a 40 millimeter Canon that I do some DSLR photometry with. So what I'd like to talk about is using the Astronomical League observing programs as a springboard to doing science. The Astronomical League observing programs are a great way to add structure and guidance to your observing. Upon completion of the programs, you usually are awarded a certificate in or a pin. And once you finish, it may trigger the desire to continue your work into that same area. So this is a list of a small list of some of the Astronomical League observing programs. The Messier program is probably one of the oldest programs, but there's a double star observing program, a variable star observing program, Caldwell, Herschel, asteroid, galaxies, several different galaxy observing programs, spectroscopy, and occultation. So if you go to the League's website, you can see a complete list of all the observing programs that are available. So I'm going to highlight several observing programs and show you how you can use that observing program and continue to do science from that program. And mainly I'm going to concentrate on variable stars since that's my wheelhouse. So variable stars are stars that change their brightness over time. There are many stars out there that are variable. And studying variable stars can give scientists information on the composition, mass, temperature, and other properties of stars. It also helps us to understand stellar evolution because stars last millions and sometimes even billions of years. And we're not long enough to see one star go through its life cycle, but we can observe several stars through different phases of their evolution. There are several different types of variable stars. They're usually divided into what are called intrinsic variable stars, meaning that there's something inherent in the star itself that's causing the variability in brightness, or there's a group of extrinsic variable stars, and those are a good example are the eclipsing binaries, meaning that there's something external to the star that's causing it to vary in brightness. So the simplest variable star program in the Astronomical League is the Binocular Variable Star Observing Program. It requires about 60 observations with the binocular of at least 15 different variables. The list that's available in the variable star program is the list that's available at the AAVSO website, where it lists binocular stars for observation. After the binocular variable star observing program, you might want to advance to the variable star observing program. And in this program, you observe 100 observations of at least 15 different long period variables, semi-regular variables, or cataclysmic variables. And they can be observed visually with the eyes or binoculars or telescope. And they can be recorded by your visual estimate of the magnitude, or you can image and do photometry to estimate the brightness. Now there's a nova observing program also, and novas are basically variable stars. It involves locating, observing, sketching, or imaging nova, supernova, or dwarf nova. And there's two levels of certificate in this program. A silver certificate involves 50 total observations of at least one from each class of nova, supernova, or dwarf nova. And the gold certificate is a certificate and a pin, and it involves 100 observations. Carbon star observing program, pretty much most carbon stars are actually variable stars, and they're a unique class of variable stars. They're a beautiful class of variables to observe visually because they're usually red stars, and they can be deep red, and there could be different hues of red, probably related to their variation. You need 100 observations of a carbon star, and the list is on the program website. And you could observe visually with binoculars or telescope, and you could also do photometry on these and submit observations. So most of those programs I've just gone over involve an association with the AAVSO, because it requires also submitting the results of your observations to the AAVSO. The AAVSO was founded in 1911, and it is mainly involved in collecting and archiving observations from actually professional and amateur astronomers. And it is a clearinghouse so that professional astronomers can use that data in their research. It's also a good place for educators to use the data in teaching. The AAVSO is also provides several educational programs for variable star observing also. Like I said, many of the programs require some interaction with the AAVSO, because you have to submit your magnitude estimates to the AAVSO. This requires a what's called an observation code that must be obtained from the AAVSO. Now, you don't need to be a member to obtain an observation code. It is encouraged to become a member, but you don't need to become a member to obtain an observation code so that you can submit data to the AAVSO. Also, a list of the targets that are involved in the programs are usually obtained from the AAVSO. The other thing that you need the AAVSO for is you need chart for your variable star from the AAVSO, because when you're making a magnitude estimate of a variable star, you're making it by comparing it to comparison stars that are in the same field as your variable star. And the comparison stars to use can be obtained by obtaining a chart of your variable from the AAVSO. So this is an example of an AAVSO chart. This is a chart of Delta Cephei that is a 10-degree field of view. This is one that I monitor on a regular basis with my Canon DSLR with an 85mm lens, and that gives me a field of view of 10 by 15 degrees. And so I go to AAVSO and request this particular chart at this particular field of view. And I also specify a limiting magnitude, because I know that in 85mm lens, like a 15 or 20 second exposure, which is what I usually use for this particular star, I'm not going to get down to magnitude 16. So like in this particular chart, it looks like it's limited to about 7.3, no, at 8.5 magnitude. And even that's probably too bright. But at least in this particular chart, in this field of view, it shows all the comparison stars that you can use to estimate what the magnitude of Delta Cephei is. And it's the variable star is noted by the cross in the center of the chart. Also, once you obtain the chart, there's also what's called the photometry table that's associated with the chart. And it gives the true magnitude of every comparison star that's labeled in the chart. For example, this 53 star right here, the magnitude is actually 5.3. They leave out the dots so that you don't get confused and think that it's a star. So if you want to find a more accurate magnitude for 53, you find it on the photometry table. and 53 for a V magnitude or green magnitude, what your naked eye would see, is actually 5.350. And so you need these two items to do an estimate of a variable star. So once you've estimated either visually or you can do photometry, that's using software to measure how bright your star is. You can enter the results manually on the AAVSO website by putting in the name of the variable, the magnitude that you've estimated, what time your observation was, and what comparison stars on the chart that you use to estimate your magnitude. And then you could also put comments like if the moon was really bright that night, or there may have been high clouds that may have hindered your observations a little bit. To the right is what I do is I do photometry. So my software that I have used to estimate the magnitude of Delta Cephei, it spits out this text file that gives me the star, which is Delta Cephei, the universal time, and then it gives me the estimate of the magnitude that I've determined for Delta Cephei. It gives me an error. It gives me what filter I'm using. This is a DSLR observation, so I'm using tricolor green. And it gives me other parameters, like what check star name and comp star name. Ensemble means that I'm using several different comparison stars to determine the magnitude. And it gives you also include the name of the chart. Every chart that you request, it has a name at the top. And that information is submitted either on the file when you do photometry or manually when you're submitting your visual observations. You put in the chart ID. So like I said, you don't need to be a member of AAVSO to obtain an observation code and submit data, and also to obtain charts for your variables. But it's a good idea to support the organization. But there are other benefits to membership, and one is that you have access to a discounted fee of choice courses. AAVSO choice courses are usually 4-week online courses of a particular topic. There are CCD courses. There is a DSLR choice course, DSLR photometry. There's a visual observing choice course if you want more detailed instruction in variable star observation. So these are available throughout the year, and they are available to non-members, but if you are a member, the fee for the course is discounted. You also have access to what's called VPHOT. It's the photometry software, online software that AAVSO members can use. So instead of purchasing and looking for your own software to do photometry to analyze your photometry data, AAVSO has this program called VPHOT where you could upload your images to VPHOT and analyze your images there to determine the magnitude. The other thing that's big with the AAVSO is, as a member, you have access to mentors. A lot of people can be overwhelmed at the beginning and need some guidance as to what direction to go. And we have mentors that are available in visual astronomy, in photometry for CCD, photometry for DSLR, and photoelectric photometers also. Anything you want, you could ask for a mentor, and those are reserved for members. You also have access to AAVSONet. AAVSONet is a group of robotic telescopes owned by the AAVSO. And as a member, you have the ability to apply and use some of the robotic telescope for imaging. There are several AAVSO workshops also. And as a member, you have discounts to those. Like I recently finished a spectroscopy workshop that was held before the last fall meeting. So what can we learn from some of the variable stars that we're determining the magnitude for? Like we have over a century of data on several stars in the AAVSO database. And one star that was in the news recently was Betelgeuse. The end of October 2019 and early 2020, Betelgeuse was determined to undergo some really strange dimming. Now, we have known for over 100 years that Betelgeuse was a variable star. It's classified as a semi-regular variable star, and it does dim on a semi-regular basis. But this dimming that started in late 2019 and peaked at about January of 2020 was an unusual dimming. When we looked back at the history of Betelgeuse, we had never seen it that dim. And its base magnitude is about 0.3 magnitude, but it had dimmed to almost second magnitude. So this was the dimmest that we have seen Betelgeuse in all the years that Betelgeuse has been monitoring. And this is what's called the light curve. What it does is that it plots the magnitude of Betelgeuse over time. So this goes from 2018 to January 2021. So the black circles represent people that have observed Betelgeuse visually, and they've estimated the magnitude and submitted them to AAVSO. So the black circles are all visual estimates. The green circles are people that have used either a DSLR, a CCD, or a photometer to estimate the magnitude of Betelgeuse. And if you notice, most of these magnitudes are black, are visual magnitudes. And this is how professional astronomers found out that something strange was going on in Betelgeuse. They were able to see the observations that were submitted over time by mostly amateur astronomers, and saw that it was getting dimmer and dimmer and way dimmer than it had been measured since they've been monitoring Betelgeuse. It has been discovered that even the Hubble got some observations of this unusual dimming. And it was discovered that the reason that Betelgeuse became so dim was that there was a release of gas, basically from Betelgeuse, and it created a dust cloud around Betelgeuse that covered about 1/4 of the star, and that's why it had such an unusual dimming.
Wow.
So you never know what's going on until you monitor. That's why we monitor these stars on a regular basis, because they can be unpredictable. And when we first started to see the dimming of Betelgeuse, there was speculation that Betelgeuse was ready to go supernova because it's one of a handful of stars that are close to us in our galaxy that's expected to go supernova soon. So there was speculation when this odd activity happened that that's what was happening. But that's not the case. The case is basically there was a big dust cloud that was blocking about a quarter of the light from Betelgeuse. So my own variable star claim to fame was observing an eruption of what's called a recurrent nova. There are only a handful of nova that are recurrent. Most novas, a star basically becomes very, very bright. It dims, and that's it. You don't see it anymore as far as a really bright event. But Scorpii is a nova where they have noticed in the past that it has there has been an eruption. It becomes very, very bright and then it dims again. And professional astronomers, when they're interested in monitoring of a particular star, they will have the AAVSO submit what's called an alert notice. And basically the alert notice says, hey, look, I'm interested in this particular star. I think something's going to happen to it. So we need as many observers as possible. So I like to do alert notices. One of my primary goals is to look at the alert notice and see what needs to be monitored. So when this alert notice came out in January of 2018, I put this star, Scorpii, on my my list to observe as frequently as possible. It was expected to go into outbursts in around 2009, but stars don't read the books and pay attention, so you have to have a window where you observe. So I started observing this in 2008 as frequently as I could, and fortunately I caught the eruption. It happened on January 28th, 2010, I believe, and it was exciting because once it erupts, astronomers want to observe the star at its peak. And this star is unusual in that it'll erupt, and within 24 hours, it's starting to decline in brightness already. So fortunately, with my monitoring, I was able to catch it with the eruption. And what's nice is that I have the image the 24 hours before the eruption, measuring it at 18.2 magnitude. And then the night, or it was actually early morning of the eruption, it was 8th magnitude. So in 24 hours, it had increased in brightness over 10,000 times.
Wow.
And so, once I discovered the brightness, the professional astronomer who has been monitoring this, Brad Schaefer, sent out an astronomical telegram and got telescopes all over the world and even space telescopes looking at this recurrent nova. My philosophy is that you're not going to detect anything if you don't look. And you might be the only one looking at that particular star that night. And 24 hours before, I actually was the only one observing it. But it turned out that the morning that I observed the outburst, one of my AAVSO friends, who actually lives also in Central Florida, he observed it about 20 minutes after I did. So it was confirmed by him. So sometimes when I don't feel like observing, I always push myself because I say I might be the only one in the world looking at that particular star at that particular time.
That's right.
So the Double Star Observing Program is another Astronomical League observing program. It requires observations of 100 listed objects. You can use any telescopes, and it can be done visually or by imaging. In the observing program, it basically requires a sketch showing the position of the primary and secondary stars. But if you are interested in double stars, you can go further by measuring the position, angle, and separation of binary stars. And this has kind of been neglected by professional astronomers. So the only people that are doing double star measurements are usually astronomers. And it can be done with a CCD camera by just taking an image of the star system. And you could actually determine the position, angle, and the separation by using astrometry software to measure the right ascension and declination of each star in the pair. And by doing this, you could actually calculate what the position angle and how separated the star is. Or there are some software packages that will do that for you. But the math isn't that complicated where there's an equation that you could use once you have the right ascension and declination for each star, that you can calculate the position, angle, and the separation of those stars. Now, the U.S. Naval Observatory houses the Washington Double Star Catalog. And from this website, you can go to the Washington Double Star Catalog, and you can look for a list of neglected doubles, meaning that these are double stars that haven't had any recent data. So they need updated separations and position angles. So you can get targets from this website. And also, you can submit your observations to the Journal of Double Star Observation. Like I said, most of this work now is done by amateur astronomers, and it's work that needs to be done to keep track of these double stars, their position, angle, and their how wide they are in separation. The Occultation Observing Program is another interesting Astronomical League program. An occultation occurs when the moon, an asteroid, or another planetary body moves in front of a star and briefly blocks the light from that star. It can provide important information on the occulting body and or the star that it's occulting. For this program, you must observe an asteroid occultation, at least 7, a total lunar occultation where the moon completely covers a star, and then a grazing lunar occultation where just the dark limb of the moon will occult. It'll actually just graze the star, where you'll see the star blinking on and off. Mm-hmm. Because the star is actually passing, you're actually seeing the light pass through lunar mountains as the moon moves in its orbit. So these can be observed visually, or what's common now is by video. And timing can be done by radio, the WWV radio timing channel, or what's common is GPS. And I have done several occultations, and it's actually pretty exciting to see on video where you're looking at a star and all of a sudden it's like a light switch, it turns off, and then a few seconds later it's like a light switch that turns the star back on. So I've done several asteroid occultations. And this can be a pretty exciting field. And most of these are also done by amateurs. And if you're going to do the Astronomical League program, it's usually done through IOTA, the International Occultation Timing Association. It is a clearinghouse for data on occultation timing. So this is where you would submit your data. It also provides predictions. It has software that can list predictions for your longitude and latitude of occultations of stars by asteroids and the moon, and of grazing occultations. And there are some really hardcore IOTA members. They do what's called chasing the shadow. Is that if the occultation isn't occurring where they live, they actually have portable setups where they go to where the occultation is going to be. I'm usually not that hardcore. I keep track of occultations, and if the path is going to be over my house, I'll observe it. The website also contains the IOTA observing manual that has recommendations for equipment and observing techniques, and also software. It also has a forum where people can discuss their techniques and data. So this is a map of my first occultation. This was in 2008. So this is the first time that I've done an occultation, and it turned out to be a positive, meaning that I did detect the star blinking off by the asteroid. The asteroid was 19 Fortuna. And unfortunately, I don't remember what the magnitude of the star was. But the list here contains all the people who were observing the occultation, and it contains 20 people. And each number is an observer. And by determining how long the star blinked out at your location, they could actually map the shape of the asteroid that occulted the star. Wow. So there are occultations that have revealed bilobed asteroids, really irregular shaped asteroids. So this is actually pretty fascinating to me. And it can be done with video equipment and a GPS time inserter, so that you could time, if you do get a positive result, time exactly how long the star blinked out at your location. If you don't want to do physical observing after you've completed a program, like there are several galaxy observing programs. If you want to continue along the lines of galaxies, you can go to the Galaxy Zoo website, the Zooniverse website. And the Galaxy Zoo is putting your expertise at work at trying to identify what type of galaxy you're looking at. So they have all of these different galaxies, and they want your help in cataloging what shape the galaxy is. Is it an elliptical galaxy? Is it irregular? So if you want to be kind of more armchair, the Galaxy Zoo is a good place to put your galaxy observing ability to work. If you don't want to do anything with your own equipment. So this is a good armchair project if you're interested in galaxies. Now, these are some of the books I recommend if you want to get more involved in scientific projects. Gerald Hubble's Scientific Astrophotography is a great source. for doing scientific research. If you're getting into scientific imaging, or actually any astrophotography, the Handbook of Astronomical Image Processing is a great resource that comes with software. It was published by William Bell, and unfortunately they stopped publishing it, but I think the book is going to be picked up by another publisher, so should be available soon through another publisher. But this, if you're doing any type of imaging, you should have this in your library. And another one of my favorite books is The Sky is Your Laboratory by Robert Buckheim. And I've used this book to death. It basically gives you a lot more detail into what kind of project you're interested in. Like if you're interested in double stars, if you're interested in asteroid photometry or occultations or variable star photometry, this book, it does a detailed instruction on helping to do that. For variable stars, these manuals can be downloaded from the AAVSO website. You don't need to be a member, but like I said, I would encourage it if you're going to be a variable star observer. The manual for visual variable star observation, the CCD guide to photometry, and DSL observing manual. These can all be downloaded from the AAVSO website. And the complete guide to observing lunar grazing and asteroid occultations can be downloaded from the IOTA website. It's a huge book. It's actually like several hundred pages, but it's a wealth of information that will tell you everything you need to do to do an occultation.
It's truly a complete guide.
It really is. I mean, I think it's about 200 pages.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so
All right.
I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions.
You know, I think in general here, I did not see a lot of questions, but I did see comments of how impressive your presentation was. I think you've inspired some people to take up variable star observing and to do science in general with their telescopes. So that's awesome. I also want to add too, this is the first time I've seen you give a presentation, and David Levy was chatting also in our Zoom chat, and we both loved what you presented here. It was very informative, very concise, very inspiring. And David's asking me, is there any way we can get you on a global star party? And so we're going to throw that out there.
Okay.
All right. So that's great. That's great.
But I hope my love of not just astronomy, but my love of variable stars, I hope that has really come through.
Yeah.
I just love stars. I think each star has a story to tell, and I'm not a deep sky person. I love it just to look at the pictures, but I love just looking at stars and realizing that there's a story that each one has to tell.
That's right. Well, seeing stars become variable is really telling you that the sky's alive, constantly changing, right? And so
yeah. And actually, one of my favorite class of variable stars is eclipsing binaries, where I would observe the target over 3, 4, 5 hours, and then take an image like once a minute of that star. And then I would plot the magnitude estimate that I obtained over time. And it's fun to just, when you finish in the morning, to do that plot and basically see that data come alive. It wasn't just this star that was there, and it stayed the same all night. When you see the plot of the light curve and to see that what it was doing that few hours. Cataclysmic variables also are a star that can do that also. And it's kind of nice to do a several hour observation of a cataclysmic variable and see that it's not just this constant star, that you see this activity that it's doing over several hours and trying to figure out, okay, what's happening.
I think
probably,
when
go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, when Betelgeuse started dimming, and I think that's the first time when it hit the news that a lot of ordinary people that really don't pay attention to either dimming of stars or changing that we can see naked eye in the sky. I think that really started people looking to see what they could see and if they could notice. I know a lot of us would go outside and say, can you tell a difference? Or is it going to come back? We asked questions because it was something so unusual.
And it was interesting that even there were several astronomers that did not realize that Betelgeuse was a variable star. They see Betelgeuse as the bright star in the shoulder of Orion, and was surprised to hear that it was variable.
Yeah.
Testing microphone.
Here's
Can
a
anybody
question.
hear me? I have a comment I'd like to make.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
I could hear you.
Great. It looks like every now and then my microphone fades out, and what I have to do is I have to say something in Greek, and I was trying to compliment you, Barbara, on this wonderful, genius talk, one of the best I've ever heard.
Thank you.
My microphone wouldn't pick up until I said Alpha Orionis, and it picked up the Alpha, and now I can hear. Now you can hear. Anyway, Barbara, I wanted to thank you earlier for the nice things you said about my contributions to AAVSO. I love the organization. I cannot say enough good things about it. I think it's a wonderful organization, but your talk went way beyond that into other fields as well. And I just wanted to say, I just loved it. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, Barbara, thank you so much. We will definitely be talking again. And thank you. That was amazing. That made me think a lot about things that I really never considered, and all the programs at the League and AAVSO. I mean, it's amazing, all of the information that's out there, that if people want to learn, good resources.
Well, the thing is, people are doing this already without kind of realizing, that they're doing science. Yeah. And they just need to be focused and organized more. But they're doing it without realizing that they're doing it already.
Yeah, which is amazing. So
there is a question. John Paraschilli says, can one do these observations without an observatory? What equipment would work best for variable star research out in the field? Actually,
binoculars. Like that example of Betelgeuse or Alpha Orionis, most of the observations were visual observations made. Actually, even without binoculars, you can estimate the brightness of Betelgeuse. But there are a lot of bright stars that you could do naked eye without any equipment, or just binoculars. Like the first program I talked about was the Binocular Variable Star Observing program. And there's a long list of variable stars that are amenable to just a pair of binoculars. And it's actually a great way to learn the night sky and learn how to find things. And so if you're interested, you could go to the Astronomical League website and look at the Binocular Variable Star Observing program, which will basically take you to AAVSO, to their list of binocular observing stars and the charts that are available so that you can pick out the variable and the comparison stars around it. So you don't need an observatory. You don't even need a telescope. You can start with binoculars.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe that's the way to start, so
Yep.
you start naked eye, you move on to binoculars, and then you get out your telescope and eventually you have a third story observatory like Barbara Harris has. So
And you learn the night sky.
be careful. This could be a very expensive lecture for you.
But it doesn't have to be. I
It
mean,
doesn't have to be. That's true. Yeah.
like since the pandemic, a lot of astronomers, like I do a lot of mentoring for not just CCD astronomy, I mean variable star photometry, but DSLR. And the amount of people that have become interested in DSLR photometry has exploded during the pandemic. Mainly a lot from people that do pretty picture astrophotography, that they want, instead of just doing pretty pictures, they want to expand their horizon and start doing some science. So I've had a lot of mentoring requests for people that are interested in DSLR photometry, and the majority of them are people that they have some knowledge of photography, where they were doing astrophotography and they realized that they can use their DSLR for science.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think we've seen astronomy explode across the board in the last year.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Some members of the Houston Astronomical Society, who actually, where this thing was born from, told me that in 2019 that their membership was like just under 400 members. They're now up around 1,000 members. So
Wow.
it's getting,
Wow.
That's incredible.
I think it was like almost 900. Actually, I'm kind of rounding up, but they'll get to 1,000. So, but and the magazines also, they're seeing a resurgence in subscriptions. So we're, I'm sure the league is also seeing a surge in membership as well. So we all did, the whole community did, and that's wonderful. And inspiring talks by all of you that were on tonight. They're really stoking the community that watches us, and and myself as well. I mean, just personally, I can say I get very charged up by this. So that's very cool.
Definitely. Thank you again.
And one thing I want to mention is that if you go to the Astronomical League Observing Program webpage, they do talk about using this to get into science. There is a citizen science link from the Astronomical League Observing Program webpage.
All right.
There's a little shout out here by one of the people watching the program. It's the handle is Love Stargazing Awe, okay, which is a cool handle. It says, hey, a special shout out to all the great Astronomical League members who put together and administer these programs. We love you. That's great. That's great.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Yes.
All right. Scott, Barbara, thank you. Really appreciate that. And Scott, are you and Kent ready, or is
Kent is here? He is here.
All right.
Yes. So
there you are, Kent.
I just flew in from Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's a boy's arm tired. So
yes,
his arm, just one, So, but
all right, I'll turn it over to you guys.
So a little bit earlier, I gave just kind of an overview of the Universe Sampler, talking about some of the different sections that are in here, just to give an overview. But we're going to dive in a little bit deeper with Kent. He has a little presentation.
So I had just got through being the featured speaker at the Oklahoma City Astronomy Club,
Right.
Which is an Astronomical League member. And, if your club is not an Astronomical League member, you should get them to join, and you can join individually as well. So what I'm going to do is earlier this afternoon on the First Light Chronicles, I did lesson 2 from the Universe Sampler. And so I'm just going to dive into that and give the same basic thing I did. There we go. Okay, so Get back up here to the start. Come on. It's not. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. All right. So lesson two, how to find the north in the sky. And, you know, I'm going to present the cover of this, and Amelia Goldberg has done a tremendous job of doing this and creating a very solid, very basic beginner thing. And this is good for anyone who hasn't got any experience. It's also good for folks like me with experience to just go back and read through to be a refresher on what we need to learn. Oh, and by the way, I need to say hi, Terry. Hi, Carol. Hi, David, if you're still with us. And hello, Barbara. We haven't met before, but now we're Zoom friends. So Universe Sampler's observing program, you can actually get a Universe Sampler observing program by completing this and doing the things required. I very quickly made a bit.ly link because the link to that to the Universe Sampler, which is $13, is long and involved. But this bit.ly link I'm going to start using on all of our programs. I'm also going to create a bit.ly link for the for the Universe Sampler observing program, which is administered by the same person that created this. So lesson two, how to find north in the sky. This is harder than people think it is, or easier than people think it is, depending on where you stand. And the biggest myth is that Polaris is the brightest star in the sky. And we've all heard it if we've been to star parties that, oh, it's the brightest star in the sky. No, it's, I was thinking it was the 50th. And I said that this afternoon without, you know, just shooting from the hip. And it's actually I said 100th. It's actually the 50th brightest star in the sky. So it's just sort of an innocuous middle of the road thing. Why find Polaris? Well, every map has a starting point. And if you're starting from Kansas City, you know, to drive somewhere, you start from that starting point. Well, the starting point for the night sky is in the northern hemisphere is Polaris. In the southern hemisphere, our friends on that half of the world struggle harder to become polar aligned because they do not have a guide star like we do. And so there's a whole different process of getting polar aligned there. But in the southern hemisphere, you can use the Southern Cross and have a good idea where south is. So this is northern hemisphere centric, not southern hemisphere centric. And Terry, and Carol, maybe y'all need to find somebody in the southern hemisphere to create a southern hemisphere universe sampler for all of our many friends on the other half of the world.
That's not a bad idea.
I think it's a very good idea. That's why I said it. You just got to find the person down there to A, write it, and B, administer it. So, you know, Polaris is within 1 degree of the pole. So while Polaris isn't exactly on the pole, it makes a little tiny circle every 24 hours around the pole. So once you can find it, once you know where north is, back in the old Boy Scout, Eagle Scout days, you know, one of the first things you learn is how to find north, because then you can navigate from that at night. The Big Dipper becomes the guide star. And it's a very well known, I think our European friends call it the plow, if I remember correctly. I've also seen it called the wagon, maybe. But these two guide stars right here, so the handle, and here's the bowl of the Big Dipper. These two guide stars literally point almost dead at Polaris, which makes it really easy if you can see Polaris or see the Big Dipper. You know, if you're the farther south you get, the harder it is to see the Big Dipper because it gets behind the trees. And so if it's a time of the year where the Big Dipper isn't visible, Cassiopeia, which looks like an M or a W if it's right side up or upside down, or a zigzag if it's like it here in this map, but it's very easy to find. Doesn't point right at it, but these two guide stars point over here really close to it, and it's the first bright star you come to. There's not much else up there in like a double hand-sized area up in the sky, and we use our hands a lot to measure things in the sky. And that's one of the things that we talk about in Universe Sampler is way to use your hand to measure the sky and say, oh, and look at that bright thing to the left. You can tell it's 3 fingers to the left or to the west of that star. Once you found Polaris, you've lined everything up. You're now facing north. Okay. So at that point, it talks about the names of the stars and stuff. But at that point, you now know where north is. So you're facing north. South is behind us. East is to our right. West is to our left. We all theoretically grow up knowing that. Although I've had friends that don't know that and they still can't master that concept. So star charts become a map of the sky. Just like if you want to drive, if Carol wants to drive from Kansas City to Miami, Florida, he's going to have a map to get there. Or he could just start driving knowing it's maybe over there, and he may end up in Phoenix or he may end up in Miami. But star charts, specifically planispheres, are the way to go. Now, a weird thing about planispheres is they're upside down. And if you look at this star chart, west is on the right and east is on the left, which seems really weird and really backwards. And the first time people look at planispheres, they look at it and it's like, I ask them, when I give a class about this, I ask and say, do you see anything weird about this map? And generally, if you've got 30 or 40 people, there's going to be one person go, yeah, west is on the wrong side. And so the reason is a map, you're looking down at the ground, right? Down here. But a map of the sky is designed to be held over your head. And so if you just take this as it's shown here and hold it over your head, south is going to be in front of you. So you need to turn around and face the south. And when you do that, now east is in your left hand, but it's on the correct side. And west is in your right hand, but it's on the correct side. So if you're going to do it in the north, you just rotate this whole map right here. And I meant to flip it and didn't do it. Flip it. Now north is in the bottom when you hold it over your hand. So I'm looking at Polaris because I found Polaris up there. And I hold this and I look up and that's north, south is there, west is over here, and east is over here, just like you do when you look on the ground. So as we can see, this map contains all sorts of information about the sky. Orion, which is in the evening now. You've got Auriga, 3 of my favorite M objects, M36, 37, and 38 are there. You've got, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Andromeda setting in the west. It's northwest. It's about to go by and not be able to be seen for a number of months until morning again, or until it comes back up. Leo at the Sugar Creek Astronomical Society, Bill Murphy, did the Constellation of the Month, which is one of our regular features. And he talked about the M objects and the nearby Virgo objects that are located very close to Leo as interesting objects. Lots of information here. But as you can see, and I've highlighted here, here's the Big Dipper. And as we said, if we follow the guide stars, it veers on this map just a little bit. And I've never gone out and measured, exactly if it's dead on straight or off by 2 degrees. I'm not that technical. Somebody can look at a star chart and probably figure out how far off it is. And I've got one over here I could do it on, but it's the first thing you come to that's got any kind of brightness to it. And likewise, remember we talked about Cassiopeia over here looking like a zigzag on this side. Those 2 stars miss it by a little bit, but the first bright star you go past, basically in this configuration, stop and turn right to get to Polaris, right? You get close to it and you pull into the parking lot. And this is a downloadable map. Anybody can download it for free. It has tons of information about what's going on. the back of it also contains a vast amount of information that's useful as well. So anyway, that's a really quick overview. Again, the Universe Sampler is a really great way to get into an observing program for beginners. They don't have to know anything. All they have to do is go through the book, $13, pretty darn cheap for a book that's going to open the entire night sky to you. And you can learn the constellations. You can learn the locations of the M objects. And, I'll ask when I'm talking about Planispheres, I'll ask who in here knows what an M object is? And most people don't raise their hand. Typically, there's one or two people, and I ask them. And, for those of you who don't know, an M object is named after Charles Messier. Or if you grew up like I did, not knowing it's French, I speak Arkansas, although there's lots of people that speak Texas or, New Mexico or Idaho. It's Messier objects. And I finally realized it's because it's spelled Messier. As a kid, Dad, he's an Oklahoma boy, Kansas boy. It was Messier, and I finally realized it's French and very quickly started saying Messier, and I'm proud of my roots. Thank you for my dad for taking me out to look at comets Bennett and West and take pictures of and watch just lay on our backs. Who all remembers the green wicker patio furniture? Well, we had that, and Dad would drag it out in the backyard, and we'd lay down with blankets and watch meteor showers all night.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, thank you to him for getting me started on this, what became a job. Pinch me. I work in astronomy. Who knew? So that's what I've got. So, like I said, pinch me. I work in astronomy. Who knew? So.
Oh, thank you, Kent.
And the point of it is, we're going to do this every week until we get through it. And I'm really going to try and encourage people to A, buy the book, because that's the way you have the book to keep, and B, do the observing club. Work your pen, get your first pen, and then your next pen could easily be binocular Messiers. Although big cities doing the binocular Messiers is going to be a challenge, because of light pollution. And every time I talk, and Scott knows this, I talk about light pollution.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Because we have got to affect change for our great grandkids. It's taken us 100 years to get here. Light pollution is completely fixable with very, very little effort, just time. But it has to start because there's health benefits, ecological benefits, economic benefits. 80% of the people can't see the Milky Way. That's horrifying to me. How much electricity are we wasting by shining half the light of a light bulb up in the sky for no reason? So,
and how much wildlife are we chasing away?
Well, who likes fireflies? I'll be at a star party and I'll ask this question: who likes star? And I love it when there's a guy there who has an NRA cap on, or he's wearing coveralls, and he looks like he's a really conservative guy. And I'll say, "Sir, do you like fireflies?" And he'll say, "Yes." I say, "Do you like birds?" And he says, "Oh yeah, we're out here at Hobbs bird watching." I said, "Okay." So what would you say if I told you that LED lights disrupt the mating cycle of fireflies? And he's real quiet. I said, "Do you think that's a problem?" He says, "Well, yeah, that's a problem." I said, "Okay. And what about birds that migrate and don't migrate correctly at the right time because of light, or they fly into buildings, or he's like, well, yeah, okay." So what you're saying is, you don't like light pollution, do you? And he'll say, "Well, no, that could be a problem." I say, so light pollution is not a green, freaky tree hugger problem. Which you say light pollution to a lot of people without any basis, that's what they immediately think is a hippie, freaky, nature lover, tree hugger thing. And that's not what it is. And so I try and find ways to talk about it before talking about, 80% of the people can't see the Milky Way, So And Scott talks about the health benefits. So,
Yeah, I'm more the tree hugger side of the equation, but
right.
but it's good for you. It is good for you, and almost every astronomer, actually non-astronomer, just people, I take them out observing, and you know, they are out under the stars. You see the Milky Way. You see a meteor streak across the sky. You start to connect, and I guarantee you, if we had a doctor out there that could measure people's blood pressure, they would see it go down. Okay, they would see them become more in tune, more, you know, they become more mindful. It's very similar. You know, I also dive. I like to scuba dive, and that feeling that you get when you're down under the water, and you know that, you know, you shouldn't touch anything or let anything touch you, because it's either going to sting or you're going to kill it. Okay. Plus you're breathing, you know, a limited amount of air. You become hyper aware. And this also happens in astronomy. You know, usually when you've been up past your bedtime, okay, your mind just kind of opens up a little bit more and opens up a little bit more, and something starts to blossom. And if you have a person like Barbara or Terry or Carol or Kent there with you, and coaxing you along and talking about the distance scale of the universe, and you know, the size relationships of stuff, one of your first indications that you are you know, being drawn in is a feeling of humbleness, because you start to feel very, very, very tiny, you know, in the grand scale of things. And you know, I've talked about this a lot recently, but all your problems shrink with it. Okay, so and a great reminder of how small we are, but how vast our minds are, is to read The Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan. It's a great section there. So I think all amateur astronomers get it, and so it's and that is healthy for you. It really is.
Scott, you know, I like to do this. You see me do this at star parties. When Andromeda's up and you can see it naked eye, I'll have somebody sit there and I'll say, okay, that's Andromeda. It's a galaxy. You know, it's the farthest away thing you can see with your naked eye.
Right.
It's 2.5 million light years away. So let's stop and think about that for just a second. Those photons going into your eyes right now have traveled unchanged with their tiny electrical charge for 2.5 million years.
Yeah.
And you now have 2.5 million year old energy in your body.
Yes.
That has traveled its entire destiny this whole time was for you to stand here and look up and have those photons go into your eye.
They're only for you.
And they're yours. They're no one else's. And most times people sit there and are very, very quiet for a while, because it's very humbling to realize that that's the truth. And then I get into blowing their minds and go, and you realize from the photon standpoint, it existed and then it didn't. There's no time passed for that photon. It was there and then it wasn't, thanks to Einstein's theory of general relativity. It existed, then it didn't. But for you, it's 2.5 million years old, and now it's in your body for the rest of your life. And it's very humbling to a lot of people to when they realize that and take it all in. Kids especially are really taken by that.
Yes.
That is something to be taken by when you really stop and think about what you're viewing there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
All right. My gosh, this has been a great night. We have had some amazing speakers and amazing talks. I'm going to go back right now and finish up the questions so we don't forget that. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have got the winners. So this will be the answers for tonight's questions that were asked earlier. The first one was, what is the name of this object and the type of object? It is the Owl Nebula, Messier 97. It's a planetary nebula in Ursa Major, and Beatrice Hines answered that question correctly. So congratulations, Beatrice. The next one was, what is the name of this nebula? This is the Cat's Eye Nebula, NGC 6543 in Draco. The winner is John Pinto. Congratulations, John. And I'm going to be honest on this last question. Of all the answers, nobody answered it correctly. So I threw all the names in a basket over here and I drew out a name. And this is hard. I could understand how it would be very confusing. This is a starfish cluster, Messier 38 in Orija. Several star chains are visible in the cluster. So Chris Larson, I drew your name. So you are going to be a winner of an all three of you will be a winner of an Astronomical League baseball cap.
Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So what I would like to say is thank you. And Astronomical League live event number 5 will be back April 23rd. So I'm not going to sign off right here, but I am going to say thank you and stay safe to everybody. And I want to go back to everybody that's still here to see if anyone has anything they would like to say before we wrap up. And I appreciate so much everybody being here, all the great talks. Connie Walker too, she is offline, but Connie did a fantastic job.
Yes.
We'll probably have her back as a keynote sometime here in the near future. And Scott, thank you so much for your broadcasting. Kent, you have done an amazing job. You've been a pleasure to work with. You've worked with us all through here too. Barbara Harris, my goodness, you were great.
Yes, she was. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for go home week tonight.
I'm going to go back and watch Barbara's. I caught the tail end of Barbara's talk. I want to go back in and watch it nose to tail. And that was just the part I saw was fascinating.
It will open your eyes. So if anybody else has anything, please go ahead, speak up before we end.
Yeah, I think that overall our audience was very inspired and enthusiastic, and we want to thank all of them for watching and for sharing this program. I want to thank everybody for allowing Explore Scientific, the league for allowing Explore Scientific to broadcast this event and the other events that we've been involved with. And I also want to thank you for the support you've given to Global Star Party as well, which has been amazing. So
Been our pleasure.
it's
Yes,
awesome.
definitely. And remember, Alcon will be going virtual this year in August, and we will come out with the dates very soon and a few more details as we move along. And we'd love to have you join us for that. And Scott and Explore Scientific, Explore Alliance will be broadcasting that for us.
That's right.
So we're very grateful for that too.
We're very happy to do so.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess that'll wrap it up for tonight.
I think you're right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please join us again. Any comments? Let us know. Thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night, everybody.
Good seeing everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Terry, I want to thank you for inviting me.
Hey, Barbara, you are welcome anytime you want to be here. I really enjoyed your talk. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep.
These are great ways to connect to people. It's truly enjoyable.
It is. It's a great way to spend a Friday night just hanging out with friends, talking about the stars.
Yep. It's raining outside. At least we can talk about it.
Yeah, really.
I hope my passion came through.
It most definitely
Yeah.
did.
Absolutely.
My addiction.
A good kind of addiction, though.
Good night, everyone.